The lunch rush had barely started when the sound of laughter, harsh, sharp, and mocking, cut through the gentle hum of conversation in a small roadside diner. The Bluebird Cafe sat on the edge of Route 57, surrounded by endless stretches of open fields shimmering under the daylight sun. Inside, the air smelled of brewed coffee and sizzling bacon, a comforting contrast to the tension that suddenly began to coil in the room like smoke. Mara Collins, 26, wiped her hands on her apron and forced a polite smile as she walked toward the booth in the corner. 3 men sat there, their leather jackets dirty and their eyes mean. The kind of men who came in with trouble already simmering behind their smirks. One of them snapped his fingers sharply. "Hey, sweetheart," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "How about you move those pretty legs a little faster, huh?" Mara's jaw tightened. She'd been working double shifts for months, trying to cover the bills after her mother's surgery. She'd heard all kinds of comments before, but something about this group made her skin crawl. Still, she kept her voice calm and professional. "What can I get for you, gentlemen?" she asked softly. The man in the middle, with a shaved head and snake tattoo curling up his neck, leaned back and grinned. "You can start by bringing us some respect," he sneered. Then he slammed his palm on the table. "Serve us, Btch!" The entire diner went quiet. A spoon clinked onto a saucer somewhere behind Mara. The cook, an older man named Gus, froze mid-motion at the counter. Everyone's eyes were on her, waiting to see what she would do. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps us keep telling stories that remind the world there's still good left in it. Mara's hands trembled as she jotted their order onto her pad. Every instinct screamed to walk away, but she needed this job. Rent was due, her mother's medication wasn't cheap, and the owner, Mrs. Parker, had already warned her they couldn't afford another complaint. So she bit her tongue and turned toward the kitchen. Behind her, the men continued to laugh. "Look at her go. Guess she learned her place," one of them said. Another whistled. "Maybe we'll tip her if she smiles for us." The Gus muttered angrily under his breath as he flipped a burger on the grill. "Don't let them get to you, kid," he said.
"They're just lowlifes."
"I know," Mara whispered, her voice cracking. "But why does it always have to be me?" She carried their food back out, 3 greasy burgers, fries, and mugs of black coffee. As she set the plates down, one of the men accidentally brushed his hand against hers. She pulled back instantly, but he just grinned wider. "Relax, sweetheart. We're just having fun." Mara's throat tightened. "Please don't do that," she said quietly. The leader, the one with the snake tattoo, looked up, eyes cold. "Or what? You gonna cry?" He leaned forward, voice dripping with menace. "You don't tell me what to do, girl." The diner's air grew heavy. A mother eating with her toddler hurriedly got up and left. A young couple at the bar stared down at their plates. No one wanted to get involved. Then, from outside, came the deep, unmistakable rumble of motorcycle engines. 1, then 2, then 6. The sound rolled across the parking lot like thunder, low and commanding. The kind of sound that made people look up. The glass door swung open, and the Iron Reapers walked in. A group of bikers dressed in faded denim, leather vests marked with silver wings and sun-worn faces that told stories of long roads and harder lives. At their front was Logan Hayes, a broad-shouldered man in his late 30s with a calm but powerful presence. His eyes swept across the diner, assessing, protective. The thugs fell silent for a moment, watching as the bikers took seats along the counter. Mara exhaled slowly and moved to take their orders, grateful for the brief distraction. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice steadier now. "What can I get for you?" Logan glanced up at her name tag and smiled faintly. "Afternoon, Mara. Just coffee for now. Thanks." She nodded and turned to the pot, her hands finally stopping their shaking. But behind her, one of the men at the corner booth called out again. "Hey, sweetheart! Don't forget about us! Maybe you want to pour our coffee with that big fake smile, huh?" Mara froze. Logan's head turned slightly, his eyes narrowing as he watched the exchange in the reflection of the window. The other bikers looked at one another, silent, waiting. When Mara approached their booth again, one of the men grabbed her wrist. It wasn't hard, but it was enough. "You're too pretty to be wasting your life here," he said with a leer. "Why don't you come sit with us instead of playing waitress?" Her eyes glistened, But before she could pull away, a hand clamped down on the thug's shoulder. The grip was firm, unshakable. Logan stood over him now, his jaw tight, his calm demeanor replaced with quiet steel. She said no. Logan said, voice low but cutting through the silence like a blade. You didn't hear her. The man tried to laugh it off, but his smirk faltered under Logan's stare. Who the hell are you supposed to be, old man? Logan's friends rose from their stools one by one. The diner seemed to shrink as their presence filled the room. We're the kind of people who don't sit quiet when cowards start picking on someone who can't fight back. One of them said. The snake-tattooed leader sneered and stood up, puffing his chest. We're just having a little fun. You gonna make it a problem? Logan's eyes stayed locked on him. You already did. The tension was electric. Even the hum of the fridge in the corner seemed to hold its breath. Then, in a flash of motion, the thug shoved Logan's shoulder, but Logan didn't move. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he leaned closer and whispered something none of the others could hear. Whatever it was made the man's face drain of color. Without another word, Logan released him and stepped back. You should leave, he said calmly. The men exchanged glances. The leader's mouth opened, but he said nothing. Then, with a muttered curse, he threw a few crumpled bills on the table and stormed out. His friends followed, their false bravado collapsing the moment the door shut behind them. The diner exhaled in unison. A few people clapped quietly. Mara stood still, her chest rising and falling as relief washed over her like a wave. Logan turned to her. You okay? He asked softly. She nodded, wiping her eyes quickly. Yeah. I think so. Thank you. He smiled faintly. You don't have to thank us. You just didn't deserve that. As the bikers finished their coffee, the diner slowly came back to life. Conversations restarted, the clatter of dishes returned, and sunlight streamed through the blinds again. But for Mara, something had shifted deep inside. Not just fear turning to safety, but shame melting into dignity. When Logan and his crew stood to leave, she rushed to the counter. Wait, she said. Your coffee's on the house. He looked at her for a moment, then shook his head. No, Mara. Let us do this. He placed a $50 bill on the counter. For your kindness and your courage. She blinked in surprise. I didn't do anything brave. He smiled gently. You stood your ground when it mattered. That's braver than most. The sound of engines roared again as the bikers pulled away, leaving behind the faint scent of gasoline and the echo of protection. Mara stood at the window, watching them fade into the horizon, strangers who had walked in at the perfect time. Later that evening, as she cleaned up, Gus came over and patted her shoulder. You did good today, kid. You didn't let them break you. Amara looked around the diner. The same tables, the same worn booths, but everything seemed different now. She felt lighter, stronger. Maybe kindness didn't always come from where you expected it. Sometimes it rode in on two wheels and wore leather jackets. And that night, when she finally clocked out and walked home under the fading sunset, she realized something else. Courage wasn't about never being afraid. It was about standing tall even when your voice shook. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Keenness Journal, because sometimes kindness and courage arrive when the world least expects it. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in that diner?